Hi, this is Girls Who Gab with Habs and Muffy, and on today's episode, the girls review 2024 in anticipation of the new year. Hey Habs, it's Muffy. I know we're still a few weeks away from the new year, but I think it's a really good idea that you had to kind of review the past year. 12 months, right? Almost 12 months. We're in the middle of December. But I think it's a great idea. And I was thinking about it, the different spheres, of my life and like all that took place. I mean, and I don't think this even covers it, but it's a good, these like kind of buckets, like work and family, my life, in New York City. I think it's, I think it can cover quite a lot of what did happen, even though, of course, it doesn't cover it all. I think that's why that living intentionally every day sort of keeps it in mind of what actually happened across like a lot of different nooks and crannies. But I think a year in review is really good. For me, I went into 2024 really wanting to produce comedy shows for my husband, RK, because we just moved here in 2022, and it was a goal for him to sort of, and I'm going to just say it loosely, quote unquote, make it as a stand-up comedian. If you're hearing some noise, that's Em, the cat, knocking on my door. I'm going to let her in. But anyway, one of the major goals was for him to sort of focus on his comedy and, as I said, making it. And of course, apparently it takes like 10 years to quote unquote make it in stand-up comedy. So, a year and a half in, things aren't looking good or things aren't going that too well, particularly because, he's a professional, middle-aged person. He's not your typical, move to the city in your 20s, live real poor and just like live, eat, die your art and see what happens. Like he's not fitting into that, right? He's old enough to be these people's father. So that's one of the major challenges he's had. But anyway, after a lot of, hearing him bemoan his lot with stand-up comedy in New York City, I was like, well, I can produce a show, I'm sure. And, then you'll have a stage to at least, hopefully get better at your craft. So that was one of my big goals, was to do this comedy shows. I mean, I have been an event planner for kids' parties in the past, but I never produced a show. But I was like, well, I think I can do it. So I did. When I review the year, I did six shows in Manhattan and one in my own neighborhood here in Jersey City. So 7 all total. And I have learned so much about venues, so much about talent, and so much about people and bringing people to a show. And of course, the most difficult part has been getting people to a show in Manhattan when there's like 1,000 other comedy shows going on. I have to say I was all sort of gung-ho, like, let's do this, I want to help you. And at some point this year, I became, I'll just say it, I became quite reluctant. I'm really not a show business person. I'm creative, but I'm not creative on the stage performing like he is. And that's just not where it's at for me. I am more business-minded, but this is business in entertainment. And I can do it. I am doing it. But I was able to name this year that I do it reluctantly. And it's very, very true. I love RK, but I cannot stand up. And so the reluctance is very, very real. But when I review the year, wow, I've done 7 shows. Some with 10 people in the audience, some with 110 people in the audience. Some with everyone's loving all the comedians, some where I got complaints about the comedians. Lots of drama with the venue, something I did not anticipate at all and took me by surprise, and the need to be very nimble and just move fast into other places. it's been a learning experience for sure. But yes, I have produced 7 shows, so that was good. I think I mentioned in an earlier episode that in the summer of 23, so not in 24, I went no contact with my parents. And that has been, a major decision in my life that I have had to struggle with, grapple with, be present to. All sorts of things have come up. I think I understand there's a trend among much younger people than me to go no contact with their families, their parents. It's like go no contact. Everyone wants to be in no contact. I mean, for me, I'm in my 50s, and I did, in fact, intentionally go no contact, but it hasn't been without pain and struggle and much learning personally for me about what that means, and also what that means for my other relationships. And Habs, you have been just so present to me as I have grappled with it. And yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's been, of course, my own therapy, my own learnings on my own, and then a friend like you, Habs, who's just heard me, validated me, and then ultimately helped me move forward. Now that I'm at the end of 24, it's still with me, but not in the same way. I think there's more of freedom and peace in the decision. And ultimately, it's been better for me. I think my mental health, my spirit, myself is just vastly improved, which is hard to admit given, it's my family of origin. It's not like trendy thing to do. It's a serious thing, and it's a hard thing. But it's interesting if it is the right thing for you, and it is, in fact, the right thing for me. What is gained for oneself? I mean, what is lost, but what is also gained? And so it's been a year of being in that space with myself, and also new spaces, since I'm no longer really grounded within my family of origin. What is going to be grounding me now? Who becomes my chosen family? Who do I spend time with? What meaning do I make in the holidays? How does it feel to be sort of an orphan in the world and find meaningful relationships that aren't familial? And I've just really had a lot of shifts around that this year. And now I'm feeling like I'm really just being released into something totally different at the end of this year. Hard to describe it, but it's just happening. It's just developing, let's just say that, into something very, very new. And I wouldn't call it a rebirth or a repotting or a anything. It's actually just in the early stages of developing, which is just so interesting, something I did not anticipate at all. So I've stayed the course, I've been true to myself, and now new things are shifting and happening, even though it has been a tremendously hard year on that front for me. So that has been another part of 2024. RK and I travel. We've always traveled, and we had some great travels this year. I did a very big mistake in that I didn't take any breaks from February to almost the end of July, which is just, for me as a therapist with a full caseload, the amount of time that would lead me to burnout. And I had burnout in June very badly. It's not a good thing for a therapist to ever get to burnout stage. But then I got kind of back on track with taking regular breaks. And certainly in 2025, I'm going to be looking forward to regular interval breaks, which will help not burn me out. But we went to Montreal and Quebec, and I went back to my West Coast city for a week and got to see my patients out there and got to see my friends and just revisit a place I lived for 17 years but no longer live. That was my first time back. And we went to Scotland and we had lots of weekends away. And like I said, we're going to be during the holidays here in Morocco and Amsterdam and Belgium. So really, it was a good year of travel. And yeah, it's always good to reflect on that. How we reflect on that, by the way, is after all the trips, RK picks a few pictures from the trips. We blow them up to 8x10. We have a particular crate and barrel frame we like to use, and we frame them, and we put them on our walls, and we've been doing this for years. So we're getting ready now to do our end of the year 2024 pictures and then put those up on, and it's just wonderful, wonderful way to see where we've been over the many years. We have launched Girls Who Gab, and it was amazing how it happened with you in July with your family talking about you gabbing all the time on the phone with me, that you just said, we're the girls who gab, and I was like, wait, there's something to that. And then launching this podcast, another creative venture along with being a reluctant producer that happened this year. I could not have imagined having a podcast with chosen family, you Habs, and how amazing this has been, and what a surprise. So we have to add that into the year. And our relationship, I have to say, has just been so significant for me. It's not surprising because of our history, but it's been a very, very important part of my year and my life and me. So I do want to just give you a shout out, Habs, and say thank you. And thank you for seeing the potential of Girls Who Gab as a podcast. And here we are. Wonderful. And then I think the other big thing I can think about as far as the year, there's, like I said, lots of things, but it was just I interacted with New York City very differently. Like when I first came, I'm just so wild for New York City. I was just out all the time. From morning, I'd go in the city at 7 a.m. whenever I could, and I would come back at 11 p.m. And what you do as a tourist, but I did that for a year. Whenever I could do that, that's what I was doing. And then I was keeping West Coast hours with my patients. So I was when I wasn't in the city like that, then I was working till 10 o'clock at night, and I'm a morning person. So not good. So this 24 was a year of shifting. My patients all shifted to East Coast hours. So I'm finished around 5, no later than 6. My relationship to the city is much more discerning and constrained a little bit, in the sense that, what shows do I really want to see? What restaurants do I really want to spend on? The one thing I'm still gaga for, and I think I always will be. I know, Miss M, you are wanting to chime in here. The cat is boss, but is the museums. I'm still a member of pretty much any museum, and some you probably don't know about in the city. And I see all the exhibits, and I take the time to do that. So that I'm still crazy for, but I realize I live here. I don't need to do all that in one day. If an exhibit's coming, I've got 6 months probably to see it. So that has been a significant change for me with my relationship to New York City. And the other thing is, I live in a pretty cool place, and I've been enjoying my place. When I first moved, I just threw my stuff here, and I was gotta be in the city. You do when you have a hotel room in New York City. You're you just throw your stuff in the thing, and you're never there. I like my place. We were able to bring all our furniture from our old town, and we're just really comfortable, and it's a really comfortable place to be creative, to meet my patients, to enjoy. And so this year has been a year of enjoying where I live and getting a better balance between the city, between my place. Oh, the other thing is I'm getting more sleep, which doesn't sound like a big deal, but when you were having the schedule I did for that year, it was a big deal. So I have to say that, like on the healthcare front, like I'm sleeping more. I think that's the big buckets that I wanted to touch upon as far as my calendar review in my mind of 2024. How about you, Habs?
Hey Muffy, Habs here. Yeah, the year in review, it's been quite a year. I mean, for you and for me. If I think back to a year ago, I'm not sure that I could have completely imagined where we both are now. I mean, I think I might have some inkling, but not with like the events that have happened and unfolded over the course of this year. Yes, you became the reluctant producer and producing, was it 6 or 7 shows? That's quite a lot. That's a huge accomplishment. And you're right, you did have some ups and downs, some, learnings with the venue and encouraging people or advertising for your shows. You're not ever going to please everybody, but I think overall, you had amazing comedians on at most of those shows, if not all. I didn't go to all of them, but the first one I went to, and they were really funny. So yeah, I mean, you've really come a long way, you and RK, in producing these comedy shows, and like you're getting into a rhythm. So, I mean, what an accomplishment. You really should feel so pleased with yourselves and so proud, because that's huge. And the other huge thing, going no contact with your family or your parents, that's a big deal, and navigating what that would look like, and, also managing and trying to understand all of the family members and the relationships that you have with them and how this would play out with you going no contact with your parents is like very complex. I mean, you are not a 20-something, and this is not a fad for you. You are 53 years old, as am I. And to make this decision at this point in your life is a really big and important step for you. And how I've seen you grow over this year in ways that, I also couldn't have anticipated. I don't think you could have anticipated completely, but, and I'm not saying like, oh, I'm so proud the way you've grown up, like I'm your, parent, but, this has been a new journey for you. And the journey that you've taken over the course of the year have had a lot of challenges, and you've come through them as kind of a new person, or becoming a new person. And it's amazing. And I think, yeah, you're trying to figure out who your family is now. I think, like some people have always been your family and will continue to be your family, but then, also living closer to family now instead of being on the West Coast, you've been developing those relationships and, trying to like figure out how those relationships might be impacted by going no contact. But, like you and I have said many times, everybody has their own lives and their own stuff to deal with. And so I think, the people that want you in their lives are going to continue to have you in their lives. I very much consider you family. And yeah, I think I'm so thankful as well for our friendship over this past year. It's become even deeper and more meaningful than I ever expected. And it's such a pleasant surprise. I mean, like you said, I'm not surprised, but at the same time, like if I look back at this past year, like you and I have been through a lot of stuff together, supporting one another, holding each other up, and getting each other through whatever we've both been going through. And that's just something to really cherish. And it can be rare. I mean, I think there are other people like us out there, but it's also very rare. And so I want to thank you for everything you've done for me this past year. And, before I look into or reflect back on my year, I also just want to say, yes, you and RK, have created this new life on the East Coast for you both, living in New York City and exploring and discovering all that it has to offer and even beyond. I mean, what an amazing adventure. And yes, you do both love to travel, and I love that about you both. A and I also like to travel. We don't get to do it as much as we like. So I love hearing about your adventures and how you plan for them and just all the experiences. I feel like sometimes you're taking me with you when I get to hear about it all. So it's a beautiful thing, and I love how you capture the memories from those trips. And yeah, your first year in New York City, gosh, I remember when you came and you were out every night. I was like, wow, is this what Muffy does? Like, is this how she leads her life? Like, I thought that was like normal for you. But you were a bit like a kid in a candy shop. And I mean that in the nicest and kindest way, Muffy. And in your second year, yeah, you've definitely toned it down a bit and kind of found your rhythm, and also just taken time for yourself to kind of process and think about, where you're at in your life and your second year living on the East Coast. Yeah, gosh, for me, I'm surprised, but I am, I guess, becoming a little bit entrepreneurial. And as we've talked a little bit, I am definitely feel like I'm in this enlivening stage. And yeah, another huge accomplishment was you and I doing the Girls Who Gab podcast. I mean, who'd have thunk I'd be spending a good part of my time doing these episodes with you. And it's been so much fun, and I've learned so much. And like, I kind of feel like that we're pretty accomplished. We're cranking out, we have cranked out like many episodes in a relatively short period of time. So I think we've been an excellent team. And, I think I mentioned to you, I always wanted to go into business with my friends. I always thought like, we each brought different things to the tables, like amongst like various of my friends. And I just never thought that I'd go into business with you. But I think, we have fun. We're doing something we like to do, which is gab. And we can do it easily and for hours and hours. The other entrepreneurial piece for me is working with a colleague of mine and helping her with her kind of like events, entertainment business. And this is a new venture for me, and it's very, it's a little bit unsettling, but it's also exciting. I also know it's something I can do and I can be good at. But I've been doing this for a couple of months, just the latter part of 2024, really. And so, still finding my way and finding a rhythm, while I'm also, exploring my own opportunities as a business owner for myself. And just, trying to figure out what my professional landscape looks like, has been something that I've been working on in the second half of 2024. So as I reflect back, The first part of 2024 was kind of horrible. I took a job that I thought would be good, and it seemed on paper and on the surface that it was good, and it turned out to be really horrible. And I was in a job where my manager, as we've, mentioned, my manager M, was really toxic, really verbally abusive, and just, created a horrible environment for me. And I don't really know why, but that ended in July. And in some ways I have to thank her for ending it, because I was in prison, I was in a horrible place. I was in prison. I wasn't allowed to do anything. I wasn't allowed to, pick up my kids, or, it was just very structured, very prescripted, and, I could never do anything right. So it was just a horrible situation. And thank God, I'm not there anymore. I wasn't even really upset when it ended, because it was horrible. I put in so many hours. I think the hours I put and the salary I made, I ended up making less than a minimum wage for the amount of effort that I put into it. And so, gosh, it made me reflect on my self-worth and what I'm really doing. And so it was a very transformative experience, negative, but very transformative for me. And, I'd been trying to find my footing professionally for a couple of years. So this, in some ways, it had to happen. It's unfortunate, but I think I've come out better on the other side. And I am, like you said, I'm becoming enlivening. I'm waking up to myself again, and it feels really good. So that's been my year, and I could never have predicted that. I also found a therapist at the early start of 2024, and maybe even late 2023. Now I can't even remember, but most of it through 2024, and that has been very meaningful and very helpful to me, especially as I went through this terrible job experience. But I continue with my therapist, and it's been really good for me. So, and, I've been thinking about it for a while and knowing I needed it, and having people tell me that I should find a therapist. So that was one major accomplishment that I have been doing this year. Also, not working over the summer, I got to spend a lot more time with my girls. I got to spend a lot more time in Maine with friends. Maine is a place that we go as a family, and it has special meaning because A and I got married there. And so we were able to host a variety of friends. I'm hoping that we can do that again next summer, or this coming summer, I should say, and that you and RK might be able to come. So that was really good. We started doing some college tours with T, and so that was really huge this year. We took a trip down south. We went to Charleston and Savannah. I've always wanted to go to Savannah, Georgia. So those are fun little adventures. And then, and then all the other little stuff in between. I've had many adventures with you in New York City and with my girls. You took Jay and I to Serendipity. I've never been there. It was my first time, and Jay's as well. You took T and I to have tea at the plaza. Just all these things that I've never done. And so, I've lived next to New York City for a long time. Off and on throughout my life. But you've really opened up the city for me, and I see it through a different lens now, and it's been a lot of fun. So I love having you on the East Coast, or I love being close by you and doing various adventures. We went on a little overnight ourselves to a little place in PA, which we both don't love, but the place we went to is very quaint and cute. So lots of little adventures like that. And Jay has started middle school and exploring new sports, like field hockey and all that kind of stuff. So all in all, it's been a pretty good year. It's been a big year of growing, learning, struggling, but also finding joy in just all the little things. So thank you, Muffy, for our friendship, especially in this past year.
Hi, Habs. It's Muffy. Yeah, it's been quite a year. 2024, quite a year. And you were right. We have been through a lot together, and we have been holding each other up. And it is rare. I mean, a friendship like this is very rare. What's even rarer is being able to kind of do some business with it. Like, I mean, that's incredible. I mean, this has been going on and on all year, these gabbing sessions with one another, talking into thin air, and just the two of us aligning and saying, hey, there's something in Girls Who Gab, and putting out that this has been a significant shift. I mean, I have been in business with people before, or doing, business stuff, and it just didn't work out. And I've ever since been kind of pretty gun shy about it. And it has been a complete and utter surprise to launch this, the power of this between you and me to the greater world. Major part of 2024 that's culminated in, launching Girls Who Gab. And it's just, thank you, Habs, for going with it. When I said, hey, Girls Who Gab, when you named it, and I said, that's a business idea. There's something to that. And you being like, yeah, there is. I mean, just meeting me there. I think we met each other there, and just going with it. It's been significant. And yes, you are becoming entrepreneurial, with this Girls Who Gab business, but also with, the event planner, and taking that certain portions up of supporting that person. And then, thinking about your own business in your own name. Right? I know you already have even a name, a potential name for your own business, which your daughter Jay is very supportive of. I think, there is something happening here, that's just cannot be denied. Your interest, opportunities coming your way, opportunities you're taking up. It's just all good. And you're finding your way, and that's how it happens. It's just reading kind of the signs as they come to you, and actually being able to read them. And I think it is a part of your enlivening of like who you are, like coming to life. And you're very good with events and organizing and planning. You are a planner. You can do it, as you said, and you are good at it. And I thank God that I'm with you. I mean, even this Girls Who Gab little venture, we're trying to get all these episodes done, and we have done a handful, and you've really kept me on track. I know I got off track with like the episode numberings and stuff, and like there you were saying, hey, I think something's off here. So I'm always like barreling through fast, and I'm like, oh my gosh, you're right. Thank God for Habs. I mean, I think you've got tremendous strengths, especially in the entrepreneurial area. And I think this is just great for you and for me, but for you beyond this, with ultimately your own company perhaps, but also your other work you're doing. And it's great to be an entrepreneur. Em, as we said in an earlier episode, she was just a mean girl, and yay, that ended. And you are on the other side of it and doing much, much better because you're on the other side of it. Yeah, that did that did take up a lot of the year for you, the beginning part of the year, but luckily it did end and on to better pastures for you, my friend. And yep, you found a good therapist. Cannot be understated how important that can be. Not only as a person who has a therapist of her own, but as a therapist myself, like I know when I'm not a good fit for somebody. And I know when I actually am, and I can be very helpful to somebody. So that is not an easy find. And I'm glad you have found one that you enjoy working with and doing that work with. Yeah, I think your college touring that you did this year has just been very interesting and very exciting. I don't have kids, so it's wonderful to sort of learn from you what that process is and see how that actually comes together in 2024. Very different than it did for us in 88, 89 when we went off to school. So it's a tremendously exciting part of your year. You have gotten more time with your girls and time in Maine. And I really can't wait to get there next summer. We already are planning that trip for July to spend a couple of days with you on our way to Acadia. But I have only the best memories of that house because that is where the two of you got married, and it's beautiful. And I can't wait to see it. I'm already, dreaming about Maine next year. And I'm so glad you had time there. And you did. You had significant time there this summer. How wonderful. And yeah, we have had a bunch of adventures in the city. Yeah, you're right. I was like a kid in the candy store. And I am honing it down, as I mentioned, but like, it's fun to share it with you and your girls. Like, I love Serendipity in the City because, I love that movie Serendipity and just all the history of that place. But taking Jay there and seeing her eat those unicorn, what was it? Was it pancakes, I think? Was it pancakes or waffles? That was just so cool. That was something there's always been on the menu there, and I would never order. To see her order it and just see what that was just totally delighted me. So doing some of these things through the eyes of you and your girls is just a completely new experience for me, a completely new adventure for me. And yeah, one of the things I also wanted to do this past year, which I did, was like travel with a girlfriend. Like I didn't really have, friends I felt I could do that with. I mean, I come from, a family where I was told, by and large, there are no friends out there. You really only have acquaintances, and only your family is your friend, and really your mother's your friend. That's it. There aren't any friends. And I've been unwinding that. That's one of the things I've been unwinding this year. And like the idea that, oh no, I have a friend, and that friend may want to go off and have a night away with me and experience that. Although, I missed the boat in our 20s when people would do that and they'd all stay in like one room and split the cost. It was on a budget. Like when I tried to do that with you, well, I guess with you, maybe you would have been more open. I don't know, though. I don't think you were very open. And BC, the one we talk about, who's out west. I mean, I think both of you actually were just like, no, I want my own space. Like you two have had enough experiences with friends traveling and the shared room experience that you were like, no, at this point we need to have our own space. Like I was like, oh no, let's all sleep in the same room and everything. Because I want to have that experience. And I missed it in this lifetime, right? I just missed that boat. But I didn't miss the boat of traveling with a friend and traveling with a good girlfriend. You were game for it. And so was BC. And so I'm grateful to you both for giving me that, because that was a significant thing I had on my 2024 bucket list, was to actually have an overnight somewhere with a girlfriend, which I know sounds just so bizarre. People have been doing that for decades. But for me, it's just happening for me now. And it was very kind of almost healing for me, and also just really special. I just have to catch up with myself and realize like, oh no, I'm not 20 and doing this. I'm 50, 53. So, but the things come when they come, I have to say. But anyway, so that was a very special overnight for me, not just because we went somewhere, but because it was only the second time I've pretty much ever done that. And it was just a really, really important part of my growth. So what a year it has been, for sure. And here's to what will come in 2025? We don't know. We have the ideas, but we don't know what's going to come. But let's see. I mean, there's a lot of things that have been set up to see what can develop in the new year. But it's always good to kind of have a look back and think about the overall themes of one's year and then contemplate where it's all maybe perhaps going. Never having it at all under control, but at least thinking about where it could go. Happy year in review, Habs. It has been so much to do with you. Thank you for everything this year. And here's to everything to come in 2025.
Hey, Muffy. Habs here. It's been fun reviewing this past year with you. It's, reminded me of some things that I've forgotten and just to appreciate all the little things that have happened and the big things. Yes, I would have to say that you too are a planner, because you plan our adventures in the city and you don't just talk the talk, you walk the walk. When an idea comes up, you're like, hey, let's do this. Okay, great. What typically happens a lot amongst friends is, okay, we'll do that. And then we never do it, right? But you're like, no, let's pick a date right now and let's commit to that. And I think that's amazing because a lot of people don't do that. They just get caught up in the everyday and then they say they're going to do this or that, but then they don't follow up right away. And so what happens is that people tend to after a while go, oh, well, she or he, they don't really mean it. So why bother to follow up because it's never going to happen. Anyways, you make it happen. So that has been a wonderful gift that you have brought to us when you moved from the West Coast. So thank you. I have to say with our business, it's been fun. I was telling my therapist the other day about it. And I was telling her, I sit in bed with my cup of coffee and my dog on my lap or nearby, and I talk. And it's fun because I like to talk. I can talk. Not all day, but a good part of the day. I don't have trouble talking. In fact, my family always makes fun of me, especially when we go somewhere and I've become my father where we're literally leaving and I'm saying, oh, we got to go. And then I start a conversation, right? So it takes us another 10, sometimes 20 minutes before we go. So quite annoying for them. But yeah, I love to talk. So it doesn't really feel like I'm working. Because I'm doing it from my bed with a cup of coffee for the most part. I mean, sometimes I'm driving, sometimes I'm sitting at my office desk, but a lot of times I'm sitting in bed having a sip of coffee. It's so much fun. And, they always say, do what you like. I would always hear that and go, yeah, I can never do what I like. I don't really know what I like. I mean, I do, but I haven't really defined it. And I do like to talk. So who would have thunk? It's the most simplest thing. I love to talk. So do you. And so it's fun. And I think that's how I feel about planning and events. I never really thought of myself as a wedding planner or an event planner. I mean, that's not what I went to school for. I went to school and studied politics. Yeah, so go figure on that one. I think as I work with T about college, I mean, she could go into art or she could go into biology and blah, 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 and end up somewhere totally different. Whereas I think Jay, no, she'll do what she wants to do. And I think she'll do college because she has to, not because she wants to. And maybe she won't. Who knows? We have all these projections and then they go right out the window. For example, looking at our year in review, T, A, and J and I started, the springtime looking at colleges and stuff. So we have already been on that adventure. And where we started and where she is now is so very different. Like, she is not even considering art school. I don't think she even wants to apply to SCAD, which is a School of Art and Design, which I feel like she should, but I'm not going to push her. But now she just kind of talks about biology. So who knows? I mean, where will we be in, at the end of 2025, or, even at the end of June in this coming year? It's tough to say. But yeah, I do like planning. I do like events because it's fun, and also because I like working with people and I like making people happy. I like, my biggest joy is when an event is over and somebody says, like, they've walked away feeling happy, or, wow, this was so great. I got XYZ out of this. That's what makes me happy. So, it's funny that I've said that before in the past, but discovering this now at 53 seems just a little bit surreal. I think you and I work well together because we balance each other out. You barrel through and I say slow down. I was talking to my therapist about this. I need to wrap my brain around stuff and then move forward, but sometimes that does prohibit me. So I like that you're like, okay, let's go do this, and so hopefully for you, it's like, oh, wait a minute, slow down a little bit, right? Like, let's just, take a break here. And, I need to wrap my brain around things and like see things visually sometimes to make sense of it. And then to move forward. So, I was telling my therapist about that, and she was also saying, yeah, you mentioned how sometimes like, when you're asked questions like right away, you're like, oh, I need to think about that before I answer. And I don't always have that ability. So that's just kind of my personality or the way that I work in life. So yeah, I'm looking forward to the year ahead in 2025 and seeing what my business may look like, my own personal business. I was talking about the work that I'm doing with this company that does like balloon arrangements and other services for events, and struggling with it a little bit. And it was actually my therapist, and she said, maybe what what you need to focus on, or just giving her advice based on what I was telling her, was like that you need to develop this relationship. Don't worry so much about the little ins and outs of every day, but you're developing this relationship so that it will translate into something else, like something for my business. So I thought that was really interesting. I do have a name for my business. It's called Sunflower Events, and I love sunflowers. I actually had sunflowers at my wedding. I like them, not necessarily because of the colors. I like yellow. Green is okay, but I like it because when I look at a sunflower, it makes me happy. So going back to what makes you happy and making other people happy, I just think it's very, it just suits me. And it describes who I am as a person and what I want to give to other people through their events. You talked a little bit about, not having traveled with friends when you were younger because of things that, your mother told you or your family. And yeah, we're not in our 20s. So there are certain things that, we just don't want to do now. And one of which is like rooming with someone else. And to be honest, the reason we did that in our 20s was because we were poor. We didn't have any money and we still wanted to travel. So it was the easiest way to do it. I have to say now, not recently, now it's been a couple of years, but I went to Italy with and then another group of my friends and their spouses, and we all rented a house together because that was a little more cost effective, but we all still had our own rooms. So we traveled together as couples and stayed in the same place and had dinner and coffee. And, so it was like we were sleeping in the same place, but not in the same room. So we still saw what we look like in the morning and, all that kind of stuff. So, it is never too late. And I think it is what makes you stay young, and me too, and trying new things. I'm so exciting. And you made me think about, like, what is our next adventure? What is our adventure in 2025 going to be? So I love that as we look at this year in review, we figured out, or we called attention to all the things we love to do. And we also called attention to the things we don't like to do, either by talking about them or by not talking about them. So here's to you, Muffy. 2025, I'm excited. Happy New Year. Thanks for listening to Girls Who Gab with Habs and Muffy, as we reflected on 2024 as it comes to a close. For more, follow us on Instagram at Girls Who Gab with Habs and Muffy. Until next time.